All right, Tiffany, welcome to the Calm Mom podcast. So grateful you're here with us today.
Thank you. It's so great to be here.
So I'm excited for this conversation because I think we're going to talk about a lot of things that are going to help a lot of moms with a lot of things that they're probably struggling with and not realizing the impact that a lot of the things we're going to talk about have on their overall health and well-being. And we were talking a little bit just before we hit record about how much of an explorer you are. So we're going to hear about that and maybe even live vicariously through you for a little bit over the next half hour. But before we jump in, let everyone know who you are and the work that you're doing.
I'm a holistic health coach. I have like a functional medicine sort of approach to how I work with people. Um, of course, as always with these things, there's a very long story. But in short, I was diagnosed with autoimmune condition, Crohn's, when I was 17. And
Wow.
then, as is typical with autoimmune things, it cascades and, you end up with multiple autoimmune things. So over the course of like 20 years, I was always on a path of trying to discover healing opportunities and different
Yeah.
modalities and ways to deal with it more naturally. Um, and it was a process, like it took me a long time and a lot of uh, trial and error, figuring things out
Mhm.
on my own. But eventually, uh, figured it all out. And
Wow.
I actually healed all of them. And clinically, they're gone. Like,
Amazing.
yeah. So I live a really healthy, radiant life now. And it's my passion to help others reclaim their health and feel empowered and just like feel their best because, I realized that so many people just don't even know. Like
Yeah.
we just don't know what is available to us in terms of the healing potential and feeling better. And, I didn't even know, aside from the autoimmune, like, I know we're going to talk about fatigue, but that's one of the things, like, I didn't even realize the kind of energy I could have until I had it.
Mhm.
So it's just these kind of things that have driven me to this path. I've done a lot of things in my career. Um, and yeah, I started like in more of a, well, I started in education, but then was in more of like a business path my whole life, like worked in the executive world. But then owned a couple yoga studios for like a decade. And all of it eventually led me here, which is that I take all of this information that I've gathered over 20 years and
Mhm.
help people live their best lives and feel their best.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that you share your story about a journey really through autoimmune conditions. And I think we have a lot of listeners on the show. I get a lot of feedback from people who are suffering from autoimmune, whatever that looks like for them. And they're surprised to hear how much of a correlation there is between all the autoimmune symptoms that they're experiencing and the state of their nervous system and the stress that they're experiencing. And
Yes.
so many of these things that just aren't, I don't know, spoken about enough. So I love that you're, standing on the other side of it with this testimony of like, hey, it really is a lifestyle approach. I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
has led to this turnaround in all of the symptoms I was experiencing. And I wonder if you could just talk to that a little bit for people who are listening who suffer from autoimmune. Maybe some of the things that you notice or that you teach about that have high ROI early on, maybe that they wouldn't hear from traditional medical provider.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd be happy to talk about that. So, one of the things you touched on was, the nervous system and these things that like people don't talk about. And, that was one of my early discoveries actually. So what you said, which is that the medical community isn't going to really like discuss these things, and what I was told from the beginning was that there was nothing I can do. Nothing in my lifestyle mattered. Nothing that I ate mattered. I was just going to have to take medication. And, I mean, this was also like a really long time ago. Things have come a long way. I do think that we've evolved a lot, and there is, even in the medical community, there's a little bit of a broader understanding of the layers
Sure.
of this. But, this was in the 90s, and there wasn't even, you couldn't Google anything. There wasn't any information out there. So, but what I was going to say about the nervous system is I sort of accidentally stumbled upon that discovery and the
Wow.
impact, which happened when I became pregnant with my son. And I was on a lot of medication prior to being pregnant. And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I had to come off of them because they were like very dangerous medications. Well, my joints swelled, which is something that can happen with Crohn's when it's not managed with medication. And somebody said to me, I couldn't really exercise, and exercise was a huge outlet for me. Now, the other component of this is that I was like a very driven type A, OCD sort of like,
Yeah.
my nervous system was on overdrive all the time. I understand this now. Like I was in sympathetic overdrive nonstop all the time.
Yeah.
So I couldn't exercise, and somebody recommended yoga to me. And I was like, sure, whatever. If I can do something, it was better than nothing. So I started doing yoga. I just got like a DVD and I was doing it in my living room. And, it wasn't like a super active yoga. So it didn't really do anything for that like need to exercise for me. But what was interesting is that it did start to calm my stress levels and calm my nervous system down. And I was like less reactive and just sort of a little more peaceful. And, it was like a brand new world for me. I had never experienced that. What I noticed was that my symptoms were less frequent.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hang on. This is interesting. Like, what is this about?
Yeah.
So that's actually what led me down the path of studying yoga and eventually opening yoga studios, because understanding this mind-body connection, nobody had ever told me about that. Everything was treated separately, right? It's like if you're having issues with your thoughts in your mind, you go to like a therapist or a psychologist. If you're having if you're having problems with your knees, you go to a rheumatologist. If you're having problems with your gut, you go to a gastroenterologist. Everything is separate.
Right.
And nobody had ever said to me this concept that like everything's integrated.
Right.
You can't separate any of this stuff, So, that was a huge piece. The other thing I will say, to your question of like, what are some of the things that nobody's talking about? And one of them, the ROI, of course, food, like that's the obvious, is that makes the biggest impact, is eating whole foods, eating clean foods. I mean, our foods are so full of toxins and chemicals, and, really understanding how to clean up what's going in, because first step is always like eliminating stressors, right? Like there are so many different stressors from our environment, but trying to reduce those. But fundamentally, in terms of lifestyle, also syncing with the rhythm of nature. And this was huge. So between, cleaning up the food and having that be more whole foods, which actually is syncing with nature,
Yeah.
I mean, really like it all kind of, and even like, you go back to like the yoga and the stress, it's like breathing and slowing down. It's like, that's also syncing with the rhythm of nature. So like overall theme is like, we can't live life separate from the rhythms of this planet that we're on. So getting fresh air, getting sunlight, being outside, eating whole foods, ideally seasonally. Like these are some of the biggest things. They're fundamental.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to get big returns to your question. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so let's explore that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I think people hear that, or I'll speak for myself, and I have a general idea about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But give us, I guess, a little bit more about what that actually looks like, and then how we can start incorporating some of these habits that get us in sync with how things move in nature and in which we're designed to function.
Yeah. So I think high level, what's important to understand, I'll answer your question specifically, but one of the things I think is key to understand is that everything that's happening in the body in terms of either dysfunction or optimal health has to do with energy production, right?
Yep.
Like your body needs energy to repair, to heal. Your body's so intelligent. And if you give it the right conditions, it will heal itself. It will repair. It will, it will compensate for the crazy things. Like we're not going to like, the demands aren't really going to stop, right? But your body can handle it if you're supporting it with like the best conditions you can. So
Yes.
thinking of it in terms of energy inputs and outputs, I think is helpful before I say specifics, which is that if you think about like all of that stuff it needs to do, you have to be giving it enough inputs that all of
Mhm.
these demands and these outputs, right, are being met. Or really, you want a surplus. You want more
Mhm.
inputs than outputs. What people don't understand, and this will feed into the syncing with nature, is that there's only certain ways to get those inputs that, without getting like too science nerdy here, our mitochondria that we've all learned about, you know, the powerhouses, the energy production, they do much more than that, but we can simplify it in that way. They run all the processes and all the repairs. The only way that they get the, let's say, the fuel that they need is from earth, like nature sources. So the way that you feed mitochondria is through sunlight, through air, through magnetism. You know, it picks up on the magnetism of the earth, from grounding. We all know this, like when, you know, you touch your feet to the ground or you touch a tree. From the food that we eat. So we can
Mhm.
get energy, electrons, through the food that we eat when it's grown in the ground, not the chips that are in a bag. Or like, sorry, even the like granola, even the healthy, you know, the healthy
Yeah.
snacks, those aren't grown from the ground. So you're not going to gain energy from them. So, and like, of course, the water that we drink.
Mhm.
So when you think about it that way, like, oh, I need to actually be getting like inputs from nature, right?
Mhm.
So that's like high level concept. Then how you do that is some key important things that people could do, simple shifts. Getting outside in the
Yes.
morning, yeah, is
Mhm.
huge, huge, huge. And it doesn't, everybody says to me, like, well, I don't live in a place like, you know, Michelle, like all of us don't live in Miami, you know. But, you
Yeah.
know, you can do it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And even when I lived in Syracuse for 18 years, um, you still can get outside in the morning. And even if it's, you know, I tell my clients like that first bit of sunlight in the morning,
Yes.
ideally you see the sunrise. But honestly, even if it's overcast, even if it's raining, even if
Yeah.
it's snowing, stepping outside for 5 minutes, getting that cue of light in your eyes is
Mhm.
huge, because what it does is it programs your body to know what time of day it is.
Yeah.
It sets the hormones into motion. Like
Mhm.
it sets the whole body clock for the day. So that's huge. If you can spend a little more time outside in the morning, ideal, because there's certain wavelengths of that light that's really healing, the red and the infrared, right? So morning sunlight's important. Ideally, some more during the day,
Mhm.
some bit of it. And then evening is really important. So you also want to, like, if you can, see the sunset, or, you know, at least get outside during that like last part of the day. Now, this doesn't have to be like, you don't have to spend 3 hours a day outside. If you can't, I mean, amazing. If you can, you're going to, the more time you spend outside, the better you're going to feel. But honestly, even just making this a habit,
Mhm.
5, 10 minutes in the morning, 5, 10 minutes at night, and some
Yeah.
amount of time during the day, just that habit alone can start to re-energize your body, give it the
Yes.
cues it needs for repair. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's things like that where it's like, just stepping outside of the house, getting away from the computer. Um, Again, even if the weather's not brilliant, it's
Mhm.
fine. Like you're
Yeah.
still going to be getting what you need from the natural, like, you know, the natural rhythms, the air, the, you know, the trees, the
Yeah.
sun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I've really been intentional about incorporating early morning sunlight for myself for the last couple years, and I noticed that, and I teach this to my clients too, that a good night's sleep really starts the morning before,
Yes.
right? It's like it's setting it all in motion. And I wonder, as we're talking about such a powerful morning habit to help with our sleep and the regulation of our nervous system, what do you advise against? Like, what are some of the worst things that we can do in the morning that goes
Mm.
against all of this stuff, that maybe if people are listening, they're like, oh, I could start incorporating morning sunlight, and I could also stop doing these things and see a really big payoff.
Yes. Okay. This is my favorite thing, because this is huge. And I'll tell you a trick, a
Okay.
biohack too. So Stop looking at your phone.
Yes.
I think you knew I was going to say that. You cannot
I
look at
talk
your
about it a
phone.
lot. Yeah.
It's like a non-negotiable. This
Yes.
is one that I tell my clients or anybody that will listen to me, non-negotiable. You do not look at your phone first thing in the morning. Now,
Yep.
I do understand maybe there's some, I don't know. I think you can find ways around it. People are like alarm clocks, whatever, but fine. I'll give it to you if it's necessary. There's a shortcut you can program on your phone that with just 3 clicks, you turn the screen red.
Oh, okay.
It's the easiest thing. Like I can send you a link if you want to like post it for people,
Sure.
but you program it so that you just do 3 clicks, it turns it red. Okay. So it shuts the blue light off. This is what I do at night. So as soon as the sun goes down or shortly after
Okay.
sunset, I turn my phone to red. This does a few things. I'm going to get back to morning, but this sets it up for
Yeah,
morning.
this is great.
It does a few things. It shuts off that blue light at night, which is critical for sleep. If you are still getting blue light input, you're still pumping cortisol and you're not producing melatonin, which you need for night. So it gets you off of that blue screen. You know, I wear blue blockers too, and I actually put like red lenses on at night, like once I get past like sunset. But anyways, the phone trick. So you turn your phone red. The couple things it does is it turns off the blue light, but it's less interesting. So you're just not like, you can function if you have to, but you're kind of just like, well, you're not going to scroll because it's just not that captivating. So it helps force the habit of you just like getting off of your device at night before bed.
Yeah.
I don't love sleeping with the phone in the room. So I do advise people to leave their phones out of their room and get a little remote and turn your Wi-Fi off at night. So those are my night tricks. Okay. The thing is, when you have it red though, in the morning, if for some reason you have to look at it for something, you're at least not giving your eyes the blue light, right? So let's say you have to turn your alarm off or something like that. Fine. It's red. You haven't like given it a blue light cue, but you're not scrolling. You're not doing any of that stuff, then you put your phone away. And then you see the sunrise. If you can't go outside, at least open a window because the wavelengths will come in. So if for some reason you just can't get outside, like at least open a window and face towards like where the sun is rising. The other thing, so phone is the one bad habit in the morning, like bad. Ideally you're off of it for an hour before you get into your day, like as long as you can. But I think like try to go for an hour. Coffee before food.
Yep.
Bad habit. This one was, I'll be honest, that one was hard for me to break. I loved my tea or my coffee, but I really, the more I understood about like what that does to your hormones, I just, it jacks up the cortisol again. And it's just like not a good idea. So you definitely want to have protein, ideally within 30 to 60 minutes of waking. And then you can have your coffee, but you don't want coffee before food and especially before protein. And then like the other bad habit that I know a lot of people do is then they like work out first thing in the morning. And again, like maybe they haven't eaten, they're working out fasted, they're maybe doing something really intense, like going for an intense run or CrossFit. I used to do that. I used to go to CrossFit at 5 a.m. I'd wake up, I'd have black coffee.
Yep.
I'd be in like bright lights, blue light, and like do this like intense adrenal crushing workout.
Yeah.
Fasted. I was doing all the wrong things. So like, I don't know why.
We think that's healthy, right? Like the culture tells us that that's healthy, that's a healthy morning routine.
Right.
So tell people a little bit because, and just you're mentioning cortisol. Our cortisol levels are already high when we wake. So explain to people what happens then when we pump extra cortisol with some of these bad habits and what impact that has. Because you're mentioning our adrenals, you're mentioning stress levels, just so people understand the why behind why these things are not great ideas and how it impacts the cortisol.
Yeah, good question. So cortisol is not a bad thing. That's important to say. Like it's really important for functioning. It's part of the healthy hormone path. Like and like you said, cortisol should be higher in the morning. It's the highest in the morning, but then you want like It peaks in the morning, but then you want a gradual decline throughout the day,
Yes.
right? When you artificially spike it at different times of day, first thing in the morning or throughout the day, it starts to throw the other hormones off balance.
Right.
So the two kind of effects are that one, it can steal from or overstress other hormones. So to counter cortisol, then other hormones have to work harder to bring it back down. And then it becomes this like chronic battle of like the stress hormones, the anti-stress hormones, and everything's just, it's like it just gets worn out over time if you're just always asking extra. Your body will handle it. And it's brilliant in times of extreme stress, right? Like something happens in life, you've got, some extra demands. You want to be able to draw on that system to pump out extra cortisol and, meet those extra demands. But you don't want that to become a chronic
Yeah.
thing, right? Because what happens is that in just those acute periods, fine. It can handle it. It goes back down. You're all good. But if it's constantly pumping, it's just like anything else. It'll get worn out.
Yeah.
And then when you need it, the system doesn't operate the way that it needs to. And then in times of stress, you're feeling really tired. You don't have the energy. This is really classic where people are like, well, everything that I used to do, I used to be able to handle these kind of hours. I used to be able to handle these kind of workouts. I used to be able to handle being tired and keep functioning. And now I can't. It's like, well, you just wore out your system. It just can't handle it anymore. And then as you said, like this can lead to sleep disruption. So what we're doing in the morning then, really sets us up for sleep. And then if you're not sleeping well, so if cortisol is activated beyond when it should, and then melatonin, which we need for sleep and repair, can't activate, then you're not sleeping well. And then that's when you're not repairing and, healing and detoxing and all the things that are supposed to happen at night so that you're like ready to do it again the next day.
The
So
cycle
that,
of it.
you want to support your body's natural cycle. Your body will handle a lot and it will allow you to live a really full life. Really, we don't have to go sit quietly and meditate to like have like a healthy, radiant life. We can handle a lot of activity and a lot of goals and keep moving if we're setting ourselves up with these, like, especially morning and evening is really where the key is to be able to handle the stressors of the day.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I hear so much in there and I love it. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of what you were alluding to with this chronic sense of fatigue. Because I think for a lot of women listening, it's like we kind of have this stark, like, pre-kids and then post-kids. And I think there is, rightly so, this feeling of being tired, especially when we have young kids, right? We're not necessarily able to sleep as well. Our body's been through a lot. It takes a lot out of us. And they just need so much from us. And that can be exhausting. But then I think sometimes we're like, our kids are 6, 7, 10, 14, and we're like, man, I'm still so tired. And I wonder if you could speak to maybe some of those signs that, like, this isn't just the quote unquote normal tiredness or one bad night's sleep, but hey, these are some signs that there's something deeper going on, whether it's gut issues or our skin or our hair or like other things that we might notice that would be an indication of like, hey, this isn't just a bad night's sleep. This is your body telling you that it needs some attention in some ways.
Yeah, great question. Because I do think it's really important to differentiate between just like tired and fatigue, right?
That's good.
And you can get kind of the myth of normal, right?
Yes.
Kicks in here where it's just like, well, that's normal. Yeah. We're all parents and we're all tired. It's like, well, is it normal though? Or are we all just like
common? Right. It's common, but is it normal?
Yeah. So one clear indication is that the difference between tired and fatigue is that, does a good night's sleep fix it? Mm-hmm. If you're just tired and you sleep really well and you feel better the next day, then you were just tired.
Yeah.
Right. If you sleep really well and you wake up and you still don't have energy, that's sign number one, is that no matter how much you sleep, even if you take a nap, no amount of rest satisfies that feeling where you actually wake up and have energy again, you should wake up and feel like really ready to face the day.
Mm-hmm.
So the other indication is that, like, if you get out of bed and you just literally can't get moving and you can't start and you're just like dragging, maybe there's generally a sense of like body fatigue with that as well. Like there's kind of a heaviness. A lot of people talk about that. Like there's just this denseness, this heaviness, maybe even soreness. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's usually body aches or some sort of pain or inflammation that's happening.
Yeah.
And like you have to have caffeine to get going. You have to take some sort of supplement or herbal to just kickstart. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in that state, that's definitely a sign. And then many of the things that you mentioned, you know, you might be noticing that your hair's thinning, or you're, you know, that you're losing more of it. Your skin is not, you know, you're just noticing like the quality of your skin is not great. Maybe there's breakouts, maybe there's just a dullness. Like it's
Yeah.
generally, you know, can just be like kind of a dullness or a dryness. Joint pain, you know, that's huge, as people just kind
Mm-hmm.
of have general aches. And then gut distress, you know, that's very common,
Yeah.
very, very common. And it's mind blowing to me how much we've just accepted that that's like
Mm.
normal.
Yeah.
Like, well, everybody's bloated. Well, no, that's actually not, you know, it is common, as you said, but that's not normal. Like bloating, discomfort after eating, just sort of feeling, you know, that sort of, describe it as like a lot of my clients have just that general puffy feeling. They just always kind of feel a little bit almost like there's just water retention all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a sign of inflammation. Um, and then brain fog, I would say, is another
Yes.
one that comes up
Yeah.
a lot, where you just like can't think super clearly. You're not, and
Mm-hmm.
again, we just blame this on like motherhood. You know, we have these sort of like, we all
Yes.
joke about it, like, oh, my kids killed my brain cells, or, you know, like being a mom, just like, I can't think straight anymore. But, you
Yeah.
know, and it's nice that we have this camaraderie, but it's like, but wait a minute,
It doesn't have to be like that.
right? Should we feel this way? Like, is there another way to feel?
Yeah.
Yes, you know,
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Um, okay, well, you alluded to some of these already, but I'm always so curious, so I wanna pick your brain.
sure.
I would love to hear a little bit about your morning routine and your evening routine.
Yeah.
So I would love to just hear some things that you do that you're really consistent in, that you notice a big payoff. So teach us.
Yeah. I'll tell you my non-negotiables,
Okay.
which is that I don't look at my phone. So my phone's out of my room. I don't even look at it until I'm an hour into the day. So it stays like plugged in away. It's in the kitchen. I just don't look at it. But I get up, depending on the time of year, because my body does just like to get up at the same time every year.
Mhm.
So in the summer, it ends up waking up when the sun's rising, which is the best, because then I wake up and I like go outside and I watch the sunrise, and then, you know, I go back in and start my day. If it's this time of year where I'm waking up before the sun rises, I do wear my blocker glasses to keep the I keep the lights low. Like I use like
Mhm.
salt lamps, and you know, I just try to keep it dim. Like I just don't make my house like an airport. You know, like
Right.
turning on all the lights. Like I just try to keep it low. But if I do have to have sunlight on, I just throw on my glasses so I don't have to worry about it. And then I generally read. So reading for me is like, I just love to
Mhm.
start the day that way. So I have a glass of mineral water. I read. Um, at least 15 minutes, you know, sometimes a little bit longer. It just sort of depends on like what the lineup of my day is. And then always a meditation. I do some breath work and meditation. So it sounds like a lot, but you know, on days where I need to keep it short, I can do all that in like 15, 20 minutes if I need to. And then
Yeah.
if I can indulge, I'll do that for like an hour. But the point is, the first part of my day is always just quiet.
Yeah.
Like I'm not engaging with any of my day yet.
Yeah.
I've become very disciplined about it, because I used to start my day like thinking about the day, looking at the calendar, immediately making plans, writing lists. And like,
Mhm.
you know, I just was starting my day with so much stress. And now like this is non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
It just, even if times when I've had to get up earlier to do it, because it sets the tone for everything for me for the day. So that's my morning routine. I do eat like a small amount of protein. It's hard for me to eat like a large quantity of it, but I usually have like, I just keep easy things like hard boiled eggs or like a little egg casserole or sometimes like a protein powder, so that then I can have my coffee because I do love my coffee, but I am disciplined about getting protein first. So
Great.
all of that happens in the morning. And then I just really indulge in my cup of coffee that I love. And then evening after sunset, generally I try to like get outside, like I said, and if I can, just depends on my schedule, but if I can get outside, even if it's just for a little walk, like after dinner or something like that, just to get that like evening sunlight. And then usually I'm reading again at night because I do love I'm kind of a nerd. If you can't tell, I love to read a lot. But my glasses go on. That's huge. So I'm very disciplined about that. I will, I'm on devices. I can't say that I like never have to be on a device in the evening because sometimes I have like later calls or, like podcasts or things like this. And so I have to be on my computer, but I wear my blue light blockers. And then I have a lens. These ones have like magnetic clip-on colored lenses.
Oh,
So
cool.
then I just like pop my red ones on and then I'm set for nighttime. But then I try to disengage at least minimum 1 hour before bed. I shoot for 2. So the couple evening routines for me that are like the non-negotiables is I do not eat 3 to 4 hours before bed.
Awesome. Yep.
No food at all. I eat an earlier dinner. If for
Yep.
some reason I can't, I'll just be honest about this. Like I prefer to fast
Yeah.
versus like I'll just skip a meal versus like eating before bed. I just
Same.
won't do it.
That's for me, that's the number one thing that affects my sleep.
Yeah.
It's like clockwork. I know if I'm going to eat a big meal or if I'm going to eat close to the time I go to bed, I sleep horribly.
Yes. Yeah. It's really it's detrimental for your hormones. It's terrible for your sleep. For metabolic health, it is like really, people who are struggling with like extra weight gain or stuff like that. Like it's
Yeah.
really disruptive for that metabolic cycle. So you're always better off. And actually, I'm more of a fan. Like people talk about intermittent fasting, and there's a lot of like different opinions about it. If you are going to do it, it's actually better biologically and for circadian rhythm to do it at night. So you're better off like skipping the last meal of the day and
Instead of,
loading up, like getting that meal, prioritizing first thing in the morning and in the middle of the day, but then like not eating later
yeah,
it'll help with your sleep and
makes
your
sense.
repair.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, those are my, and then it depends, but like high level, those are the things. I protect my lighting environment. I'm very careful about my exposure, to devices. I turn off my Wi-Fi at night. Oh, I forgot to say that. So I should have brought my little remote, but you can get you can get them on Amazon for a couple bucks, like $5 or something. But they're just like an on and off remote. You can use them to do for anything. So like if you like wanted to turn on and off a light in your house or any device that you want to turn on and off, you buy these little on-off remotes and you plug it into the outlet, and then whatever device you are trying to turn on and off, you plug it into that thing, right? And then you just have this little remote. I keep it by my bed, and when I go to bed at night, I turn off the Wi-Fi, and that's it. Done. And then you give your body a break, at least for those, 8 hours where it's not being exposed to like the Wi-Fi and the EMFs. And, it's hard to escape this stuff, but these
Yeah.
little things that you can do, like when you do what you can,
Mm-hmm.
it adds up. These little
Yeah.
things add up for sure.
Yeah. And you've given us so much that, like, if you're listening to this and you're feeling overwhelmed, I just want to encourage you not to, because starting with any one of these, you're going to notice a difference. So pick something that feels like something that you could incorporate, either something you're going to add or something you're going to take away from your daily routine. And then just notice how you feel, right? And then when
Yes.
that becomes embodied and you're seeing the payoff, and you're doing it habitually, then you can try adding or taking away something else. But little by
Yes.
little, I agree, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm so glad you said that. And this is what I tell my clients all the time is like, because I get people, they get so excited and working with me. They're like, I want to do all the things. And I'm like, no, because I know that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pick the biggest impact things. We're gonna take small steps. And exactly as you said, like once that just becomes a habit and it's just
Hmm.
part of your like daily rhythm and you don't even think about it, then you're like,
Right.
oh, great. Now what? And
Yep.
that's the way to do it. If you try to do all this stuff all at once, you'll be so overwhelmed and like it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But literally choosing one thing. So I would say, like, honestly, for people, start with the like phone thing, turn it
Hmm.
red. That's it. Give yourself a couple hours before bed where you're not looking at a blue screen, that hour in the morning. Just start with that and do that for, I don't know, a few weeks, a month, a few months. See how that feels and then move on to something else.
Yes, I'm gonna
Yeah,
actually start that. I'm gonna I'll put the link for you guys in the show notes on how to do that, but I'm gonna do it myself too because that's something I'm not doing. So thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Awesome. Well, this has been so great. I've learned a lot, and I'm believing that you've given us just so many practical things. Like I was saying, something for everyone, somewhere for everyone to start. So I really appreciate that. But let everyone know where they can find you and connect with you and get more of what you're teaching and offering.
Yeah, my website's the best place to connect with me. It's just my name, tiffanycagwin.com. So Cagwin is Cagwin. From there, you can get my socials. You can connect with me on all the socials. Um, if you want to book a discovery call with me, I do a pretty extensive complimentary discovery call and just talk to people about how I work with them. You can book that right through my website.
Awesome.
If anybody feels like they are needing a getaway, I've got a Costa Rica yoga retreat coming up, and we still have a few spots left. So the info for that's on the website as well. But really, everything just goes through my website, and I'm really easy to reach and happy to talk to anybody anytime and see if I can help.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. That's awesome.
Thank you.